Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up. Tonight, we're gonna light it up. Tonight, we're gonna light it up. Just like the sunrise, we're gonna light it up.
Howdy, howdy, coming at you live, answering heating and air questions live. I've got a pretty good show for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about a quick story just to get started out of the Tri-State Digital. So this is, looks like this news organization supplies or broadcasts to Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia, I guess. The way that looks. Story here. Now it's not popping up. Here I am on a live show and it's not popping up. Bear with me one second here, folks. Maybe they did away with the article. They did. They I guess because I'm not a subscriber, maybe, to their account. What a shame. What a shame. I was going to tell you guys a story of about a couple that had been accused of stealing heating and air systems from rental properties, and this is not letting me see the article anymore, which is crazy. I had it pulled up, just a little bit ago. Let me see. Maybe I can find it this way. Man and woman accused of stealing There's the article right there. Let's see if it'll let me in. Yeah, see, this keeps popping up, so it won't let me into it anymore, which is fine. But, you know, here I had it all prepped for our live show. I promoted it all week, and we were gonna talk about this this story, but this is it right here. A man and woman accused of stealing a heating and cooling unit from a property where they were renting in Monaville area is the first line there. And yeah, so what a shame. Anyway, good to see everybody. Looks like we've already got a few folks on our show tonight. TXDOT. So the Texas Department of Transportation is with us tonight. And he pointed out it's probably paywalled, which it is, but I'm not going to pay, maybe I'm just too cheap, but I'm not going to pay to be on their, I'm never going to be on their website again, probably for the rest of my life. So I'm not going to, pay to be on that and, never need it again, just for the one article. So call me cheap. But that's just the long and short of it. I could have promoted their news organization, but that's not going to happen now. So anyway, good to see you, Texas Department of Transportation. Good to see Steve and Arch, a couple of our regular guys. Good to see all you guys. Arch says, good evening from Arizona. What's new in the wonderful world of HVAC? Any new affordable heat pump technology? Well, I don't know about affordable, Arch. I think you're pushing it a little bit with that. But there is all kinds of new things, right? I'm glad I had a plan B tonight, because I do have a plan B for you guys. And my plan B tonight is I wanted to show you guys just maybe a little treat, which is the first video. It's not the first video I ever did on YouTube, but it's the first one that I ever showed my face. And there might have been one before this one, and that I can't remember. I might have took it down for one reason or another. But this was the first video way back in 2016 that I posted on this channel. And I thought you guys might get a kick out of it. I'm going to show it to you here. And this is me. Back then, this channel was all about my company. I hadn't started giving tips to you guys yet. And so I was doing kind of a commercial for the company. So I thought I'd let you guys check this out. Hey guys, this is Josh with Griffin Air in Hartfield, Virginia, serving the Middle Peninsula and the Northern Neck in Virginia. And I wanted to talk to you today about how we do a proper tune-up when we do our air conditioning tune-ups. So the reason that's important is we're not one of those companies that we come out and kick the tires and we're gone in 10 minutes. We do a proper tune-up. We clean the outdoor condensing coil and we just put the cover back on, but we also clean the indoor evaporator coil. We treat the drains. We try to make that air as it can. Air conditioners and heat pumps are kind of like vacuum cleaners. If you've ever covered the end of a vacuum, how much louder and harder it works. Air conditioners are the same way. They need to be cleaned up once a year, making them as new as possible again, so that way they're not having to work so hard. As you can see, Ryan is just simply cleaning the outside. And tune-ups are more than just taking some measurements, kicking the tires, and they're just leaving. We're actually going to clean that system. We want it to be as new as possible again. We check all the same measurements that those other guys do too. We check those heat exchangers and check the refrigerant levels. But tune-ups are more than that. We want that system to be new again, as new as possible. Last thing is, we do have maintenance programs available for us, so it's peace of mind for the homeowner. We'll come out twice a year, look at that system, make sure everything's on the up and up, so that way you're not having problems on those extremely hot or cold days. Give us a chance to earn your business. Give us a call at 804-505-0247, and that's 804-5050-AIR. So what do you guys think of that? Times have changed. Times have changed. But yeah, I just thought you guys might get a kick out of that. At least I did. I got a kick out of it. I was just kind of working on some things, and sometimes when I'm working on YouTube things, I'll look at, what videos are performing well, and then, look at, just different analytics and things. And so one of the things I clicked on was, let's go all the way back to the first video. And yeah, he says, do you feel old? Yes, I do feel old. But I it's funny. I don't miss those days either. You know, those were the days when I started my business. I still wore glasses back then. I got LASIK at one point, and I remember, you know, there were times back then because I didn't have facial hair. Guys would be like, "Oh, you're the owner? Where's your dad at?" You know. So anyway, but pretty cool. Let's see. Again, if you're just joining us, we're taking heating and air questions live. There's some other pros on here as well. So if I don't know the answer to your question, one of these guys will, but, feel free to drop those in the chat. And, sometimes right now the chat's pretty, slow, but sometimes when the chat gets going, make sure you put those questions in all caps with a question mark so I don't miss them. But Tech Junkie says, how old were you? 12. I think I was in that video. Let's see, 2016. I was 30 couple, probably. I had started Griffin Air, and then the guy that was with me in that video, he's still with me to this day, which is really cool. So he wasn't there at the very, very beginning, but he's been there, you know, since the beginning. You know, he wasn't there for Genesis, but he was there for Leviticus, you know. So anyway, Arch says, I remember your baby faced videos. Really? So you've been watching me for a while. Yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah. So again, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat. In the meantime, what I'll do instead, I'll just go ahead and jump to the, story that we had for next week, since the story we were supposed to have for this week, is not loading. Try one other. Let me try a different tactic here. Maybe if I use a different browser, because they can see that I've been on that, you know, that I've been on that article before in that browser. Maybe a different browser will work here. Oh, it worked. Look at that. Smart guy. Okay. Now, how do I show it to you guys? Give me just a second here. Let me remove this. Sorry for coughing in your ear, guys. Let's see. See if it will let me share. Well, maybe I'll have to do it this way. All right. Can you guys see that? Hopefully you can see that. But this is the article I wanted to start the show out with. And then it wouldn't work on that browser. But we finally got it to work. So a man and woman are accused of stealing a heating and cooling unit from a property they were renting in the Monaville area, according to a criminal complaint filed on public record in Logan County Magistrate Court. Deputy Allen of Logan County Sheriff's Department received a complaint from landlord George Howes on September 5th, who stated that he had been renting a Monaville property to Tony Renee Mathis and Jimmy Willie Mathis. According to the complaint, Howes told police that he allowed Tony Mathis to apply for the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources and Pride Community Services Incorporated to have a new heating and cooling unit installed at the property. Company called Trumpet Heating and Cooling, a subcontractor through Pride, installed the new unit in 2021. According to the complaint, Howes was made aware that both the accused loaded the heating and cooling unit into the back of a truck and transported it away from the residence on September 2nd. On September 5th, Deputy Allen made contact with the two accused, and according to the complaint, Tony Mathis stated that the unit was picked up by Trumpet Heating and Cooling. Deputy Allen writes that Tony Mathis also stated that she had documents regarding the unit, but was unable to provide any. Over the next few days, Deputy Allen contacted an official from Pride who stated that the unit belonged to Howes and that the two accused individuals were not authorized to remove it. Okay, so there you go. Because that sometimes there is a little confusion there. I mean, if the couple is saying that they were the ones that, you know, technically they were living there, but they own the unit, that might change things. And that would be an odd situation, let's be honest. Allen then contacted Cliff Ellis, owner of Trumpet Heating and Cooling, who said his company never picked up the unit and that they only install them. Ellis provided documents regarding the installation of the unit totaling $7,444. On September 8th, Allen once again spoke to the two accused individuals. According to the complaint, Tony Mathis backtracked on her story and instead stated that she had removed the unit and had it in a storage building. She further stated that she planned to take it to her new residence in Mingo County when she moved. Tony Mathis then advised that she would make an attempt to return the unit to its rightful address. According to the complaint, on September 11th, Deputy Allen received an anonymous tip stating that the two accused individuals had sold the unit to another person. Allen located the unit with matching serial number covered in a tarp behind a residence in the Montville area. What a crazy story this is. I'm so glad we figured this out. I'm so because I didn't think I was going to get to read this to you guys. I thought we were going to have to jump to the story for next week. And this is like a movie, you know? According to the complaint, the homeowner stated that Tony Mathis had been approaching her for weeks about selling her a heating and cooling unit. The homeowner stated that Tony Mathis claimed that the unit belonged to her and that she had permission to sell it and promised to provide documentation at a later time, but never did so. The homeowner stated that she purchased the unit for $1,000 and that Jimmy Mathis helped place it behind her residence. Both Jimmy and Tony Mathis have been charged with grand larceny, receiving, transferring stolen property, and conspiracy in connection with the matter. Both currently sit behind bars at South Regional Jail on 10% or surety bonds of $75,000. So yeah, what a crazy story. It's interesting that we got all this of the story. We didn't just get, okay, this couple's accused of stealing. We got all the ins and outs of it. So, anyway, kind of a crazy story there. Let's see. Let's get back to our chat. Looks like finally got some things moving there. Anyway, I'm so glad we got that story to work. It wasn't working there for a minute, and we somehow made it happen. So good stuff. Let's see. Montville. Now that's the place I want to live. Tech Junkie says. And he says it's been a couple weeks. So good to have you back, Tech Junkie. Emery says, hey, I'm concerned about the potential for CO leakage from my furnace. Other than the heat exchanger, what else can be done to prevent CO leaking from the furnace? Ooh, what a loaded question. I think there's a number of things. I don't know that there's a whole lot that you'll be able to do yourself, but you definitely want to have a pro take a look at it periodically, at least once a year. And not just inspecting the heat exchanger, but making sure that, everything is properly working. I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs, but if intakes and flue exhausts are not sized properly, that can play a role in all of this. There is a such thing as backdraft. And the last thing I'll say is just please make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector in your home if you have any fossil fuel burning appliances. I've heard it on a couple podcasts recently where they talked about how they're not as sensitive and they're not as effective. I mean, that may or may not be true, but I just think that I would not go to sleep tonight without one. If you have a fossil fuel burning appliance in your home. Now, is there exceptions to every rule? Sure. There might be times where if the unit is out in the garage, it may not be as paramount. But if I'm burning fossil fuels in any way, shape, or form, anyhow, then I want to have that. I remember years ago, we had a house that the guy had an issue and the furnace was literally in his crawl space beneath his bedroom. And, we could go back and forth about, how carbon monoxide's heavier than air and all those different things. But the bottom line is it is a silent killer. It will kill you. And I've heard way too many horror stories. I remember years ago, I've talked about this plenty of times on this show, of a Dateline story where they thought this hotel room was haunted And it wasn't until after a number of folks died staying in that hotel room, they later found out after a high school volleyball team had played a game there, and several of the kids were all staying in that room. So it was like 3 or 4 kids in the same room, and one of them died, 2 of them, and then 2 of them were like sick, like they had to be rushed to the hospital kind of thing. And then they finally found out that it was a carbon monoxide. OSHA came in, or one of those organizations finally figured it out. And so anyway, man, Ryan I'm reading Ryan's comment down below, and I'm chomping at the bit. But the last thing I'll just say is just, again, get you a carbon monoxide detector. I get one that, you know, I've never tested them, so I can't definitively say that one's better than another. If you're not sure if batteries or plug-in is better, get one of each. You know, get a, you know, battery, maybe a battery backup one, and some plug-in ones or whatever. But I would have, for every bedroom that you have people sleeping in the house, I would have one. You know, I would even argue that a carbon monoxide may be more important than smoke detectors in your house, because it is odorless, and you may not realize you have an issue until it's too late. So anyway, just my 2 cents on that. There's my spiel. Tech Junkie says also make sure all the exhaust pipes are properly installed in good condition. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, but I think the thing with that is, how's a homeowner to know? You know, they can look at it and visually see if there's a problem, but you know, I think in a lot of cases, you just got to get a couple opinions, get a pro in there, and then by gosh, switch it up and get another pro in there, you know, at some point, you know. So Ryan says, what do you think of building science channels on YouTube? They offer a lot of HVAC advice that actual pros rarely advocate for, like ERVs and dehumidifiers. There's a disconnect between pros and building sciences. I have talked about this in a recent video where I think the video was called something like biggest problem in our trade, an HVAC trade. And you're totally right that there are a lot of heating and air guys, and it's not their fault. Well, let me back up. It's not 100% their fault that especially if they're still learning, it's okay if they're still learning and they just have not learned that yet, right? But what's not okay is if you are in this trade and then you think you know everything and you stop learning, right? And you just haven't learned enough. I do think that ventilation is not pushed enough in our industry as a solution to a lot of indoor air quality problems. I was just talking to a guy just the other day about, he's located in a small town near us. He had his crawl space encapsulated and no one could sleep in the house. Like he had a pro go in there trying to figure out what the problem was. And the guy come out and his eyes were bloodshot. And ultimately, to make a very, very long story short, because it is a very long story, he's had a couple different companies in there. He had come to me because he wanted to know if our mini splits had mold in them and just all these different things over the years. And ultimately what ended up fixing it, and I wouldn't even call it a fix, but what made it bearable to be able to go back in the house after years. You know, this has been an ongoing issue for a long time. They finally cut the encapsulation and opened up all the foundation vents so the house could breathe again, and it stopped. And so he and I talked a lot about VOCs the other day, and what some of those causes could have been. But ultimately, whoever is encapsulating these crawl spaces did so without ever considering ventilation or solutions to offer fresh air into the house. You know, so they eliminated any breathing that house could do, and then they didn't, you know, offer any of those solutions. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think ultimately it's ignorance. They just simply don't know. But the flip side of that coin that I would flip back to them is, why don't you know? Why aren't you still trying to learn? I don't know everything, but I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. And so, to answer your question, Ryan, I'm glad that some of this information is getting out there. The last thing I'll say, though, is some of these guys calling themselves building scientists, I think that they're making it sound way better than it is. You know, they go into, this is not towards all of them, by the way. So before one of them sees this and wants to fight, some of them are very smart, and they're very good at what they're doing. And I'm glad they are. But some of them are calling themselves building scientists. They're charging ridiculous amounts of money to offer the same solution to every single problem. And, you know, they just come in and they look at the sizing of the system, the ductwork, and then they look at, you know, encapsulating crawl spaces, sealing attics and things like that, and adding ERVs, you know, or dehumidification or whatever. And so I just think that it's just interesting how some of them are marketing themselves. That's all. So I'll get off of that, but anyway, we'll move on. Texas Department of Transportation says, got any Daikin merch for sale? I actually don't. I tried to offer free stuff at one time. I was offering free, not just merch, but I was offering free thermostats. We would go out there for a couple times. I went live and I was offering some free thermostats that were in great shape, but we had removed them from a house or something like that. And I was willing to give them away as long as somebody paid me for the shipping. And, all that stuff flopped. So I just stopped doing it. So anyway, that's that. I don't have any merch for sale though, but if that ever changes, you know, I'll let you know. I mean, who knows? Daikin might see this and throw something out there. You know, I'll bring it up to them when I talk to one of those guys. Tech Junkie says, I carry a personal CO detector everywhere I go. It goes off in the car every day. Oh, no kidding. That's crazy. That's not good. Ryan says, do you make changes to ductwork as a pro and not check airflow with an anemometer or flow hood? I just had work done and the company didn't use either to check their work. So, let me make sure we're speaking the same language here. Okay. The main thing that I will look at is that a lot of pros should be looking at more is we'll look at static pressures a lot of times. We will look at airflow. You know, airflow is obviously a big deal, but I can say that I don't go in there with one of these, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, an anemometer. And because to me it's more than just that. So and here's why. And so if I have a house and I'm laying out the ductwork and I get that tool out and I'm measuring airflow and I'm like, well, I need more CFMs to, you know, or whatever. I think some of that, if ductwork is installed properly and laid out properly, then you should not have the issues that a lot of houses are having. Let's put it that way. And so, I mean, I'm just going through all the times that we've had to replace ductwork or size it correctly or so on. I think at a common sense level, I'll just say it like this. If you have a room that's 200 square feet with another room that's 100 square feet and everything else is the same amount of windows and, you know, insulation and ceiling height and all that stuff, then the room that's a little bigger should get more airflow in one way, shape, or form, whether it's a larger duct or more vents, whatever. And so sometimes I think the common sense side of things is the part that's missed the most. You know, these guys will, I would say they take classes and then apply the wrong, but I think some of these guys are just throwing mud on the wall. I mean, some of this new construction stuff I see, the trunk and the returns out of the gate are undersized. They obviously don't own a ductulator. I've argued with guys that have been doing this for years over what size return a 2-ton system should have. They'll just slap a little. They'll do a 14 on one side and a 16 on the other, and we'll pull a ductulator out and we'll argue about it. And, you know, so I think if all that stuff is installed right, sized right, you know, you might have to, it looks like you and Tech Junkie are talking about adding dampers and stuff. You should not have to add dampers. If everything is installed correctly, in my opinion, you should not have to have dampers that are opened and closed and constantly throughout the year, depending on what mode it's in, trying to push more room, more air to this part of the house versus that part of the house. It's in houses that, you know, they are not using best practices that they have to then add that stuff to artificially fix the problem. One guy argued with me. I did a video where I talked about spider ducts or octopus ducts, whatever you call it. I think different parts of the country call it different things, but ultimately there are guys that they'll set an air handler or a furnace, and then they'll put this plenum on the end of it, and then just come off that plenum with all these takeoffs. And it just looks like an octopus of sorts, you know, or a spider, just all the ducts coming off of this one box. There's no way you can balance that properly. There's just no way. And his argument was, well, I installed dampers on all them and I balance it. No, you don't. You are not doing things properly. You need to either go back to school or you need to watch some more YouTube videos, you know? Let's see. What is the purpose of a blower door test? It's checking the envelope of the house to make sure that it is, well, here you go. Tech Junkie's giving you a good explanation. Leakage of the house, inspection, passing old load calculations, does great for energy efficiency improvements. Yeah, ultimately, they're checking to see how tight the house is, and it checks the envelope of the house. Basically, how much air is being transferred from outside, and that will sometimes affect a lot of the other things you can do in the house. So what I mean by that is a lot of guys will come in and say, oh, the heat and air system's not keeping up, you know, and they'll just put a bigger heat and air system in there when maybe that's not what you need to do. Maybe you need to get, you know, better insulation, or, you know, a crawl space encapsulation, or there's an actual issue with a part of the house or something. You know, those are all things that you can. What's really cool is they've got these thermal cameras that can sometimes, you know, speak volumes on what a lot of your problems are. So, you know, getting one of those out, or if you have a friend that has one, and on a really, really cold day, pull that thing out, you know, and walk around your house, and it'll, you know, it'll speak volumes. Emery says, does Daikin offer any indoor air quality products? They have a line. They have their Daikin One ecosystem, but they also have, before I say it wrong, because everybody calls it something different, and I know what you guys are probably thinking. Don't you know what off the top of your head? I don't think I do. Here it is. Clean Comfort. Yeah, if you go to cleancomfort.com, that's some of their IAQ products, and you'll see all of them listed there. They've got whole house home filters, electrostatic, electronic air cleaners, HEPA air cleaners, dehumidifiers, humidifiers, UV lights, and so on. So, I don't know how all that works as far as, you know, I don't know what Daikin's actually producing themselves, but I'm sure that most of these brands, including Daikin, if they're going to put it on their website or be selling it in one way, shape, or form, they're at least vetting the products to some degree. Or maybe they do own it and it's just under a different label, branding. I've never dove into that. Some products that we offer at Griffin Air we're all over the place. And what I mean by that is we don't have the same brand that we use for humidifiers, that we do for UV lights, So this is their website here. Cleancomfort.com. So yeah. Let's take a break here and break away for one of my favorite segments, which is I call it Josh's Goofy Inventions, and I think I've got one for you. So tonight's Goofy Invention. One of you guys are already talking about building scientists and how some of those guys are working as a third party. And what I mean by that is a lot of these guys are, they'll come into a house. They don't actually provide any of the services that would be a solution for you. But that what they'll do is they'll run tests and they'll tell you what you need to do is kind of the thought process. And what my goofy invention tonight, I was kind of coming up with different ideas, different inventions, and in my head. And the one that I came up with would be similar to what a building scientist would be. They'd be a third party opinion of some type, but instead of a building scientist, as we understand what they are, or the service that they provide, these guys would be my idea. My goofy invention would be, what if there was a guy that the pain point is this? What if the guy replaced all these contractors and all their opinions when you're gathering quotes? And I help folks on our website, newhvacguide.com, and they'll sometimes say to me, I was just helping somebody just the other night, and they said, well, I've had 3 contractors come in, and all three of them gave me a different opinion on what the solution should be. All 3 of them, one said I should go ductless, and one said that I should look at going inverter, and one of them said, no, all that stuff's too complicated, and you should go with a single stage furnace. And and they're like, it's just too much. And so what I would call this goofy invention person, instead of a building scientist, I would call them an RFP person, or an RFP HVAC specialist. How about that? And so RFP, for those of you that don't know, it stands for Request for Proposal, and they're not uncommon in a lot of different for different things. But what this guy would ultimately do is he would charge you a fee, and he would come into your house, and you could hire one, like a home inspector, and he would come into your house and he would do all the measurements for you. So you don't have 10 different contractors doing 10 different things. And he would specialize in doing all of the proper things that you need done, right? So that he would do the manual J and the manual D, he would lay all that out, and the manual S, and the specs, and what makes sense here and what makes sense there. And so you would have this cute little RFP packet that you could then hand to a contractor, you could hand to 5 different contractors, and then when they price the job, you're comparing apples to apples. They all price the same thing. How cool would that be? How cool would it be if that person existed and then they were able to streamline all of that to a point where if you were a homeowner in the market for a heating and air system, they do all these measurements, they post it on some website, and all of the contractors can look at that information without even having to come to the home and price the job. You know, how cool would that be? I don't know, just kind of my goofy invention I came up with. I would call it the RFP HVAC specialist. That's what I would call him. So let me know what you guys think of that goofy invention, and comment down below. Tech Junkie says, I have yet met a HVAC guy that knows how to use a ductulator. I've got a couple that work for me. So, but that's funny. Bigger is never better unless the lady is talking. You're bad. Ryan says, I'm having an issue with my T-stat not reading temperatures correctly. I saw there was a hole in the wall behind the thermostat that was drafting badly. Put foam and insulation behind it, but still runs long. Interesting. Should I move the thermostat, or is there a thermostat with sensors that averages temperatures for? What you could do, Ryan, is they do make sensors that you can buy for a lot of the thermostats out there. A lot of the smart thermostats, just about all of them, I don't want to say all of them, but a lot of them have that capability. And the reason that they've come out with them in a lot of cases is they want you to have the ability of testing in another room or another part of the home without having to rerun all the wiring, right? Without having to relocate that thermostat and wiring to that other part of the home. And so you could get one of those sensors and mount it in another part of the house or at the right beside the thermostat, and it would not be affected by that. But if that's the issue, you should be able to get that resolved. I mean, even just a piece of tape, sealing that hole over, you know, should be able, you know, we normally will stuff a little bit of, you know, insulation or something in there, and then you can caulk it, of course, but it sounds like you've tried to do that and it didn't seem to help. The other thing you can do is a lot of thermostats have the ability that it's not going to change the operation of the thermostat, but what if you're sure that it's 3 degrees off, then you can sometimes go into the programming and adjust it 3 degrees, you know? So again, that's not fixing the actual problem, but it will read more accurate, if that makes sense. Should I move the thermostat, or is there a thermostat with sensors that averages? I don't know about averages. I don't know there's a thermostat that does that. Maybe there is, but it's not that you need the average. You just need an accurate measurement of what that temperature is. Now, if you're saying that the system is having zoning or ductwork issues, then that's a whole nother pickle. Has nothing to do with what the thermostat thinks the temperature is in that room. Emery says, what is the difference between manual J and S? Do you need both of them to pick the right size system for your home? Well, manual S, at least in my experience, it came along later. I don't remember guys really even talking about them for a while. So I don't know what year it came out, or, you know, it's to me, because in my mind, manual J and manual D have been around almost since day one for me. But manual S is, you know, something that ACA kind of came out with. I don't know if it came out later or if maybe it came out at the same time and they just didn't push it as hard. But where it's become a big push is these newer systems, these inverter systems, now that they have, you know, different ratings and you know, of course they're inverters, so they're going to ramp up and down. But sometimes the latent capability might be different when you're comparing one system to another. And so that's why manual S is sometimes looked at more, you know. So is it as important as manual J? I would argue that it's not, but other pros might argue differently. Ryan says they can bid for your job with the data. It makes sense. Thanks. Craig says, I like the idea, Josh. I could see a need for lots of pictures with each case, being that no two homes are alike. That's a very good point, you know. So especially when you have pros that are pricing a job, they could do like what, you know, maybe like a GMP price or a Goodwill price where they say, hey, as long as everything that we're seeing here is accurate, this is our price, but then they get to the house and something, you know, they get hit with a curveball that might affect the price, right? Shinobi, good to see you again. I love that idea. Some push one thing because it's what they prefer to do, some because it's a brand they prefer, etc. Yeah, I would even argue that there are times when some brands are pushing one product over another, and they'll give the contractor perks and kickbacks and spiffs and all these different things. And maybe that contractor might push something that they wouldn't normally push in a particular situation to take advantage of some of those perks, you know? I don't know. But I do think that happens, you know? Let's see. Let's do another breakaway segment. And let's do tonight's question. Tonight's question for you. What is the thing you, no, I don't really like that question. Let me go on down here. Let's ask this. How often do you get maintenance done to your heating and air system? And don't lie. If it's not at all, share that. I'd love to hear that, a truthful answer, because then I would almost follow that up with, how often do you get the maintenance done, but also what type of system is it? You know, if you have one particular type of system over another, maybe you don't require as much maintenance. You know, maybe where you are in the country might play a role in this. So let me know in the chat. Tech Junkie says, some brands suck like Amana. All I hear about from those units are they don't dehumidify, and I don't know why. Maybe you have an Amana dealer in your area, Tech Junkie, that they don't know what they're doing. Because anyway, I think Amana is a good brand. Tech Junkie says, makes no sense, but that's what I hear. Same with a certain line of Bosch. So some of the non-communicating inverter stuff is having in dehumidification problems. And it's just because of how they're designed. If the airflow does not account for whenever the airflow is not being adjusted and the coil is not cold enough to remove that humidity, then the sensible capability of that system is just lessened. That's just the way it goes. That's why, years ago, Carrier had those thermostat systems, and all they were doing was slowing down the airflow. The coil would get colder, and they would act like it was some amazing technology, but ultimately it was just, they were slowing down the airflow to dehumidify better, and all that affects the, what we call latent. So anyway, let's see. Shinobi says, I had a guy come to give a quote, I think is what that says, and mentioned ductless mini, and he said we couldn't do ductwork. I told him I already had 2 quotes with ductwork. I could tell the quote would be bad, $5K extra bad. Interesting. I have never had it maintained, but I tell people they need it done, like my mom's. She had a propane furnace with a heat pump at work. I do a quarterly contract. Interesting. Ryan says twice a year, straight AC, natural gas furnace. Emery says, aren't Amana and Daikin the same? A lot of their stuff is the same. Amana is a line, Daikin is the parent company, basically. So, Bruce says not at all. Yeah. Ultimately, so a lot of the products that Amana has is crossover. So the Amana S series is equivalent to the Fit, just different controller. In fact, they're made on the same assembly line. I recorded it and did a video. So, and their warranties are different too, which I think is interesting. So Daikin has maybe a longer warranty and that unit replacement warranty, whereas Amana has a lifetime warranty on some of the components, like the compressor. And so I don't know if that's to appeal to a different crowd, or, I don't know the thought process behind that, but it is pretty cool, especially as a homeowner, that you can get, decide what makes more sense to you, what's more important to you. But yeah, Tech Junkie said, you've never had your system maintenance. I would be curious on what type of system you have. If you have never had it maintained, is it a gas furnace? And I'm just curious. Arch says Daikin and Goodman package heat pumps look identical other than color. Yeah, a lot of their stuff does cross over. What does lifetime mean? I don't know. You can read their paperwork. I assume it means the life of the system, or, as long as you have it. So if that compressor fails, and Amana's not the only one. There's a couple other brands out there too that offer lifetime warranties on different things. I know just about all the products that Daikin, Goodman, and Amana make have lifetime heat exchanger warranties, or at least on most of their products, not all, maybe. But they have the lifetime heat exchanger warranties, but, I think that's the life of the system. So, as long as that system is registered and it's maintained and it's installed, same homeowner, sometimes that affects it. So if you sell the home, then it's lifetime warranty. Tech Junkie says different controller. Yes, it's a different controller. Craig says Amana and Goodman are not going to have the Daikin one. Josh says, when installing the fits, do you find more folks want the unit wall hung, or do they want it placed on a concrete slab? In our area, we don't do a lot of we don't do the wall brackets a lot. Have we done that? Yes. But not a lot. So most of our units are going to be sitting on the ground on a pad or on a wooden platform. So some of our customers will build if they're in an area that water can get higher, floodplains and so on. And sometimes code requires it, depending on the locality. Then we will install it on a pressure treated wooden platform. Old system was 23 years old and never had it looked at until the condenser fan went out. Then when it was 21 years old, all the parts were original and it was a Nordon 3-ton. That is impressive. My new units are 9 months old, and one's the fit and the other is a 1-ton 17-seer Daikin mini split. Nice. Shinobi says, is the quote rule of thumb, quote unquote, of 500 square feet per 1 ton based on the assumption of a standardized 8-foot ceiling? I don't know that rule of thumb, Shinobi. I've heard other people saying that stuff, and I've seen websites that say that stuff, and it's completely inaccurate. I would not go buy any of that stuff. If you do, you might make a mistake, a big mistake. Square footage is not the only thing that should determine the size of your heating and air system. There's so many more variables. Ceiling height is one of them. Insulation, windows, appliances in the home, how many people are going to live in the home, what's the space going to be used for, etc., etc., etc. Does it get shade? Does it not? All these different things play a role in what size system should be installed in that home. So I would not use that rule of thumb. Ryan says, Josh's favorite brand to discuss, Nortec. No comment. Bruce, it's an all electric. I'm trying to figure out what you're referring to, Bruce. Sorry. Can you give me a little more context? I'm looking at all the other comments and I'm not sure what you're asking, pal. So anyway, one let me show you guys. Let's see. Amana. Let me see if I can find. So their controller for the S series, which is it's very similar to it is the Fit. It's a side discharge unit. It's an inverter system, and it's completely communicating. And their controller looks very, very similar to the Daikin One Touch. Let's see, share this tab. So this is kind of what it'll look like. So it's a little different. Obviously the branding is different right there. But that's kind of what that'll look like. And I know those guys I know some guys that are Amana dealers, and they were chomping at the bit, ready to get a hold of that unit. There's some localities that the Fit is one of the only solutions that'll work. You know, if you've got a locality that you've got to do an inverter system, you've got noise requirements, you've got size requirements, it's got to be a side discharge type unit. And I think here's another, I'll give you guys a prediction. I think if we are doing this show still in 10 years from now, you're only going to see side discharge units on the market. I think you're going to I think you're going to see more brands in the next 5 years come out with budget-friendly side discharge units, single stage even, possibly. And they're going to be budget-friendly side discharge units. And then you're going to see more side discharge units come out that are top of the line. Top of the, that are 20 plus SEER. And, they're going to be maybe a little bigger to make that happen. But you're going to see, I genuinely think 10 to 15 years from now, you're going to start seeing the trash can style units be phased out. The companies are just going to stop offering them. So if I had an all electric system like I do now, I'd do 2 years maintenance, depending on coil cleanliness. But the electrical connections still need to be checked. Fair enough. Nicholas says, least favorite brand of HVAC equipment. No comment. If that's another one of those, if you know, you know. Anyway, there's one particular brand that they're sold online, and I'm just not a huge fan of them. We'll just put it at that. Leave it at that. Bruce says, mine is a heat pump and an air handler by Summit. Interesting. Summit. Let's see if Summit could be a private label brand. Because when I put in Summit, I see a bunch of companies come up that are called Summit. So I wonder if that's a private label brand, which is not uncommon, by the way. So what a lot of these companies will do is they'll start to get bigger and bigger, and then what they'll do is they'll buy their equipment from Daikin or Lennox or Trane or whoever, but they've got to commit to selling a certain amount, and the brand will just simply rebrand the equipment. So when they get it, it'll have their stickers and their little nameplate on there, because nothing comes up when I put Summit HVAC in there except for contractors. So looks like there's a contractor in Delaware, North Carolina, Ohio. There's several, Pennsylvania. So I bet that's just a private label. I'm just guessing, but I bet it's a private label brand. Arch says, what's your opinion on the future of package heat pumps? I think Arch, I think you're you're going to have a few more options coming soon. I know you've been kind of holding out a little bit. I know we've been chatting somewhat about, your area and how big package units are. I do think that, there will come a time where Bosch is not the only brand that makes an inverter package unit, but I do know that a lot of the brands that it's just not a big market share for them. And instead of going after it and capturing that market share, they just simply, they'll offer a few solutions and then they just don't push it, and I think that there's a few brands like that. So maybe that'll change, we'll see. Bruce says the units are 23 years old. I think that's what he said. Ryan said, what do you think of private labels? I don't really have an opinion on it. I think it's good marketing for the contractor. I mean, if you're doing business with a company called Summit and they're big enough to have their own equipment that says Summit on them, I mean, that's kind of cool, but, what I would want to know as the consumer, what is it? If it is a private label, what is it? Who's it being made by? Because some of them I wouldn't be okay with. I want to know, am I installing a Carrier, a Train, a Daikin? What are you putting in my house? Well, no, it's a Summit. Yeah, I hear you, but who made it? You should be able to answer that. So in fact, Bruce, I would love, next week for you to, if you find out, if you want to send me the label or however we got to figure it out, but I'd love to find out who did make that unit. If it's a private label, that would be kind of cool. Kind of another topic for another show, right? So anyway, we're going to be wrapping up soon. If you got any last minute heating and air questions you want to share, but while we're doing that, if you would, if you've got a good heating and air company local to you, please share them in the chat, who they are and where they're located. Let's show those guys some love. It's probably one of my favorite things that we do on our show. And, I don't know if you guys like it or care, but it's one of my favorite things that we do. So, if you've got a good company local to you, please share them. Arch says, hopefully, before next summer, something will give because we'll be replacing our old heat pump with another package unit. Well, Arch, I would hold out as long as you can, because I don't know when, but these new refrigerant systems are coming. I sat through a webinar today where they were saying that it could be as soon as in the next 2 months. And so, we're in November now. So they're saying, January. So as these companies start to roll these out, these newer, I don't know if that's accurate. That's just what the guy said. But as they start to roll this equipment out with these new refrigerants, I would say that if you don't get the package unit you want with the new refrigerants in them yet, hold on as long as you can. But I don't know if that's the right move or not. That's also part of this too. I think it could be argued that 410A refrigerant is going to get more expensive as the years go on and it's harder to get. But that's not to say that these new refrigerants won't be expensive too. I just don't know. But I think I'll say this. If I was talking to my own family, I would say hold out as long as you can. Let's get you a couple portable ACs if you can. Let's tough it out and let's get through this until we can buy a good long-term solution, because we're finally there. We've been talking about it for the last year or two, and now it's here. We're finally to the point where these new refrigerant, this equipment is going to start coming out, and it's going to affect, if nothing else, it's going to affect the price of 410A refrigerant. Ryan says, across the country or local to where you are from new refrigerants and new systems. across the country. I'm saying across the country. In fact, where I am, I'm in Virginia. Virginia is one of the last states that has not approved A2L refrigerants, or at least as of 2 weeks ago. I have not heard anything late. I don't know what the latest is on that. I would imagine as soon as that happens, we're going to find, we'll be getting word, my distributors and so on will probably be letting us know. But as of 2 weeks ago, Virginia was still one of the last few states. We're only talking, I think it's like 6, 7, 8 states or so that have still not approved the A2L refrigerants yet. And I don't know why. I don't know all that. Maybe it's political, maybe it's safety. I just don't know. But it's coming, and hopefully it's sooner than later for all these states. Maybe that's what the deal is. Maybe these companies are ready to start rolling this stuff out, but they want to wait until these last couple states, get their butt in gear on this stuff. I don't want to be in the first year customer for people installing the new equipment with the new refrigerants. I was going to wait an additional year. That's not a bad idea. The one thing I'll say, though, if you go with a Daikin, a Mana, or Goodman, is they're switching to R32. And I would argue that R32 is better. Now we can talk all day about whether it's better, whether it's a better product for the environment, or whether it's a better product for, whatever. We could go back and forth. But it's the only solution right now that is a single blend. It's not a blended refrigerant. It's a single element refrigerant. And it's just like R22 was. So you can charge it in gas or liquid. And you don't have to worry about glide. And you don't have to worry about, all the other crap that people have to deal with 410A, getting the subcool perfect. I think that we're going to finally, and I don't know, I haven't laid hands on it yet. But I remember the days of R22 and how great it was to work with. It was just great, So for me, in my house, as soon as the fit, the newer fit with the better capabilities comes out with R32 in it, I'll probably be putting that in my house, in my upstairs, as soon as I can. If we bought a 410A system today, what happens when it's phased out, assuming the system lasts? Are there options if you need a refill? Yes, you'll be able to buy 410A for plenty of years to come. In fact, I actually like this phase out or phase down better than how they did it with R22, because R22, it's almost like they were kind of dangling it in front of us for way too long. In the early 90s, 410A systems started coming out, and then you could buy either one for the longest time. And then you started seeing some people more and more start to switch over to 410A. And then it got to where you could buy R22 equipment, but it was dry charged and all these different things. And so with these new refrigerants are coming. They've put a hard date on it and said, after this date, you can't buy 410A equipment. But then you still will be able to buy 410A refrigerant for another, at least decade and a half, so that, I think that's a healthier way to do it, but, we'll see. It could be a poop show. I won't say what I was actually going to say, what my dad used to say all the time. Ryan said, good show. Thank you again for answering questions. I hope your channel goes by leaps and bounds this year into next. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that, pal. Me too. The goal is to eventually grow this thing into, being a great solution for anybody that's, if you've got a big purchase coming up, we want to be the place that can provide you with, the answers to your questions. That's really what this is all about. So Tech Junkie says R32 is just 410A. That's not dumb. R32 is in 410A, yes. Yep. And it's also in R454B. It's actually in both. So anyway, we're going to wrap up on that, guys. Thank you for your support. If you've never subscribed, we appreciate you doing that. Obviously, that helps us out. And as always, we'll be back next Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern Time. So find out what that is for you and your area. But yeah, we appreciate your support, and make it a great week. We'll see you then.